This past year, we switched to Shopify.
Okay. Yeah.
But the thought, going back to the beginning, the thought with launching with e-commerce was no one else was doing it in our industry, and we did believe that people would buy expensive items, without dealing with a salesperson.
Yeah.
We didn't really know how they would do it or what that process would look like, but we believed that they could.
Yeah.
And that it would be a better experience for them.
Welcome to IndustrialSage, a free video podcast series all about digital marketing for industrial manufacturers. Hear interviews with your peers and find out how they're solving the same challenges that you might be facing in your own field. Coming to you from the Optimum Production Studio in Atlanta, Georgia, this is IndustrialSage.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. I have a familiar face, Daniel Loeschen from MXD Process. Daniel, thanks so much again for coming on. This is take 2. So I think you were here last October, November, and we talked about social media. So if you haven't seen that episode, you might want to check it out. We talk about the importance of social media and whether it's valuable for manufacturers, and really great episode. But one of the other things that we wanted to kind of pick up on the conversation is that you guys have you guys are rolling out with e-com. And we're seeing that a lot, and I just think it's really valuable for everybody. So wanted to just talk about like how you guys started doing that, why you started going into e-com, and all that good stuff. But before we really get started, for those who haven't met you, heard you, haven't watched that episode, tell me a little bit about yourself and MXD.
Yeah, so I'm the marketing director at MXD. The company's been around since 2010, I think, so going on 9 years, and really just wanted to be a disruptor in the space that we're in. It's old school industrial manufacturing, and there's not a lot of new developments in that industry. In terms of how to sell and how to process things and and market, and it's just been the same stuff for so long, and so. We really wanted to kick it off from the beginning with trying to do something different and just see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's been a great almost 9 years. I've been there for the last 6, so almost since the beginning.
So tell me, so what is MXD? What do you guys manufacture?
Yeah, so we started off making just agitation equipment, like big mixers, things like that. And then after a couple years, we started making our own vessels for them, which we found there was a large need in the market for that, because there's not a lot of companies, like very few companies, that do both and have the engineering in-house.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you're needing to mix something, you need a mixer and you need a tank, and so you're buying them from different people.
Right.
And then sometimes neither one of them have engineering, and you have to find an engineering firm to design it. It can get really costly and really convoluted. And so we wanted to be a company that did all of that, and people really love that. So we added on stainless steel tanks, and then a few years after that, we added on automation and batch control systems and stuff like that. So that's why we kind of changed our name to MXD Process, because we're more of a process company now. So any piece of equipment that has to do with processing a liquid, that's what we provide.
All right, so food service or chemical, anything.
Pharmaceutical, food and beverage, brewing and distilling, chemicals, oil and gas. There's a lot of different verticals for it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about this e-com thing. So when did you guys start going into e-com, and why?
Yeah, so we started from day one. We built a store on Magento. I don't know if you're familiar with Magento.
Yeah. So it's a e-com website.
Yeah, it's a platform. And it's good. It's a good platform. It was a little too much in terms of everything that it could do for what we needed.
Sure.
But it was something that was recommended, and we kicked off our website with that, and it did well. I mean, that's really what grew our company up until this past year. We switched to Shopify.
Okay. Yeah.
But the thought, going back to the beginning, the thought with launching with e-commerce was no one else was doing it in our industry, and we did believe that people would buy expensive items,
Yeah.
without dealing with a salesperson.
Yeah.
We didn't really know how they would do it or what that process would look like, but we believed that they could.
Yeah.
And that it would be a better experience for them. So, granted, kicking it off, it was, especially in 2010, it was slow going,
Sure,
but
yeah.
what it really started off with, the propellers, like $60 propellers that you
Right.
can't really mess up, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And then after a few years, we redesigned the site, still on Magento, to kind of make it a little more user-friendly, and we were heavily investing in SEO to try and, do better in rankings,
Right.
get more traffic, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But year over year, there was some small growth in e-commerce sales. And we always had the idea that eventually this could be like a salesperson replacement. It could sell as much as a salesperson. We really believe that. We just wanted to figure out how to do it.
Sure,
And really that happened within the last year. And
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So 10 years. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but the market's there now,
Right,
so
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it would take
2010, that was a little
yeah.
difficult.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, some of our competitors even have websites in 2010,
Some of them probably still don't. But
You're
anyways,
right. Yeah, it's a slow-moving industry,
Yeah.
So we did a ton of research. We were willing to spend the money, talk to a lot of our customers to figure out what they were doing on the website, what they liked, what they didn't like, what it would take to get them to be able to spend 10 grand online,
Right,
that
yeah,
kind of thing.
right.
And so we switched platforms. We moved to Shopify, which is just like full e-commerce.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of the other bells and whistles.
Sure.
I don't know if I even want to call them bells and whistles, because Magento is a pretty dated software itself, and Shopify's it's been great. It's super easy to use. We signed up for Shopify Plus. That has a lot of the B2B stuff, software and advantages that their normal platform doesn't. And so we did a redesign, and the redesign was based off a lot of the customer feedback that we had and like the analytics that we were looking at. One of the big things we found looking at the analytics was that on average, the average time on site for a visitor on our website was over 20 minutes.
Really?
Which is crazy. I mean, that's an insane amount of time
Sure,
for someone to spend on a website. Like you or me wouldn't do that.
Sure. Why is that? Why do you think?
Well, we started reaching out to people, like asking them. And the main reason was how critical the purchase was. Because they're a business that is buying this equipment to produce their product.
Right, yeah.
And so if they don't get what they need, then they're not making product,
Right.
they're losing money, and it's our fault.
Yeah.
And so so they were spending tons of time trying to get as much information, trying to make sure that what they're buying is what they
really needed,
need.
yeah.
And they were trying to do it without talking to a salesperson. And so after talking with them, we were like, okay, well, clearly what we need to do is get information on the website,
Right.
educate, get resources on there so that they can speed up that process,
Right, yeah.
and get enough information so that they're confident and that they can trust us that they're going to get what they
Right.
need. So we spent a lot of time developing that kind of content, from better images of the products to customer testimonial videos, and so people can search for products based on the industry that they're in.
Yeah,
and
that
then
totally makes sense.
Yeah, and each industry page has customer testimonials. We traveled and visited, made videos of different companies that we've worked with, and so to really like build that trust through every step of the process, and it's gone very well. I mean, our website's much easier to use. We have a visual navigation, so people aren't having to read as much.
Right.
And that time on site has gone down by about 10 minutes, since we launched. And
Wow.
it's been a huge success so far. So I mean, we're close to that goal of being able to replace a sale, not like fire someone and replace
Right,
it,
right.
but not having to add, add
Sure.
the dollars without the cost. I
Right.
mean, that's the goal. And
Absolutely.
so we're projecting next year we'll hit it, like probably halfway through the year if the growth continues.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a huge win for us, for sure.
So I'm curious on a couple. So you started with $60 part on there, and then now you've got. What's the most expensive product that you could purchase? Let me ask this: what's the most expensive product that somebody has purchased?
Sure. I think the most expensive. It happened this year. Someone spent about 18 grand, like just straight through the e-commerce cart. Which was unheard of for us before.
Sure.
I mean, I think before we launched this site, it was maybe like 3,000 or 4,000.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, we're getting the $10,000 plus sales straight through the website every month now, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, where we would get 10, 11 orders in a week, now we're getting 30 or 40 in
Wow.
a week, and it's It's just the proof is in the pudding that
Sure,
if you do the
absolutely.
research and you talk to your customers,
Right.
like, you can be successful in it.
Right.
That people are really willing to spend that much online when they're
Right.
confident. If they're not confident, they're not going to. Like, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, how are a couple questions? How are your customers primarily finding you guys?
Primarily through Google.
Okay, so
Yeah.
a lot of SEO.
A lot of SEO.
Okay.
Yeah, we put a lot of resources into that, and we have people monthly, monthly working on the website and our whether it's on-page data or the meta stuff in the background, the back-end stuff. But we have people working on it all the time to try and increase those rankings month by month, and
awesome.
that's the main way people are finding us. But then social media,
Sure.
and we do a lot of trade shows, and as we bring in more salespeople, they bring in contacts too, and we have email marketing. I mean, really the whole gamut of digital marketing. But the main source is through Google search.
I notice you've got your inbound shirt
Yeah,
on,
that's right.
or hoodie there. So for
Yeah.
those who aren't familiar with the inbound, I mean, it's HubSpot. HubSpot obviously is a big proponent of blogs and content marketing and all that
Right.
stuff. I'm just curious, is that part of from a content marketing strategy standpoint?
sure.
Is that part of what you guys are doing
Yeah,
as well?
absolutely. Yeah, it's the main building block of our, I would say, of our online marketing strategy. Making content that then drives traffic.
Yeah.
Then drives traffic to bring people to you.
Yeah.
But that also has to be followed up with a good sales strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
and so I mean, if you can bring as many people to your website as you want, but if you're not taking care of them on the other end, then it can be useless.
Are you having customers that come to your website? They maybe start going through Shopify, or they start going, looking at things, and then they're like, I really want to talk to somebody about this. Do you think, is there like a percentage, what you may say, who go complete by themselves versus
I don't know the exact percentage wise, but
even anecdotally?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably somewhere around half, I would say.
All right. Wow. That's pretty good.
And we have a really great online chat.
Yeah.
And we have the chat personalized to every page of the website. So if someone's looking at, for example, we sell mixers called top entry mixers. If someone's looking at and they spend a certain amount of time on that page, well, the chat box will pop up and say, like, some personal message about what they're looking at, asking them if they need help about it.
Interesting.
And so that prompts a ton of leads because it's a picture of one of our actual salespeople, and so if they do start talking with them, they're talking to that person that they're seeing. So it's just kind of like tearing down those walls and like letting them know that they're talking to a real person, even though that salesperson isn't the one that popped that up or whatever, but if they respond to it, they will be talking to that person.
That's awesome.
Helping them along the way, every step of the way, making checkout easier. That was one of the big, pieces of feedback we got, was that our checkout was, laborious, and so
Make it more fun.
or shorter at least. We had to make the switch to a HTTPS site. A lot of websites are just getting removed, from search because they're not, and so we wanted to get ahead of that. So we, one positive of Shopify Plus is you get, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's like a couple different tiers of security, and Shopify Plus, automatically you get the highest level of security, so you get that green badge with the check. And so we have that now, so people know that it's secure when they're shopping. And, but it's just a one-step checkout. You get a picture over here, and you fill your stuff in over here, and then you check out. You're done.
That's awesome. So all right, so a couple other questions then on that. And you may or may not know the answer to this, but when you're looking at customer feedback, I'm curious, do you have any demographic information just in terms of like who is actually buying, not in terms of like, named companies, but just in terms of, are you seeing it boomers, Gen X, millennials? Is there a mix? Or any idea?
Yeah, not so much millennials.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
And the main reason for that is because our industry is older. It's just older, It's not so much, a lot of the older people that are retiring aren't buying. It's really that middle, like, between 30 to 50, which I guess the early 30s is still considered millennial. But that's the main demographic right now, because the CEOs are always the older guys, and then the head of engineering or the project management is the one that's doing the purchasing, or looking for what they need to purchase, and that person is usually in the somewhat of a tenured employee, but not at retirement age. So it's that middle. It's getting younger. It's definitely getting younger.
Okay.
But not quite. The millennial age group hasn't quite aged up into the
decision-making role.
The decision-making role. Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. So another question I got for you, as far as getting organizational buy-in. So in terms of your leadership and saying yes, we want to do this. Like, how did that happen? Like, was there a lot of selling in, or was it? I mean, obviously that's a very innovative approach, especially to do that in 2010.
Sure.
Let alone doing it today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, still very innovative, very risky, very different.
Yeah.
Is that a cultural thing, like inside the organization? What was that?
For us, it is definitely more of a cultural thing. Our CEO has always been on board with wanting to push the envelope in the industry, and so there's not, for us, there wasn't a whole lot of buy-in that needed to happen. Him and I work very closely together on these things, and when we first started talking about making the switch to a better platform and really investing in it, it really started from realizing that we have to make a change because of the security of our site. That was a big issue, because we needed to upgrade. We needed to upgrade how our site currently was, or we were going to lose a ton of ground in our rankings.
Just out of security from really
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, because how, like, if you go to a site that isn't secured, you get that blank page on Google,
exactly. You do not,
and that's just happening more and more and more,
right,
and so that was the path we were on, like that was going to happen, and so we were like, okay, what do we need to do for this? And then once we kind of pulled that out, then we realized that we really need to update our theme, which was currently on Magento, and then Magento had just upgraded their platform, so that even if we updated this theme, it wasn't going to work on the new one. So we ended up going to like a conference to try and find people and talk with people, and started this year-long search to figure out what we actually wanted to do, and through that it was just like uncovering one thing after another of what we could do, because that stuff's not cheap. Even from the beginning, we knew we were going to have to spend a good amount of money on it. But if we were going to spend the money, what else could we do? Like, what could we do?
Yeah.
And that's when we started looking at the numbers of our e-commerce, and not just wanting to get a better design, but a more functional design, one that when people see that it makes them feel good. I know that sounds really vague, but it's a big part of it, because when you're shopping online, especially if you're going to spend some money,
$18,000.
Yeah, right. I don't know how often you do that, but when you buy anything online, within seconds, when a website loads, you get a feeling about it. You just know, like, this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really want to deal with these people. Like, you might not even be able to put into words, but
Right.
And so we wanted to have a website that didn't give people that feeling. That instantly made people feel like it was a company that was well reputable, that they could trust, all that kind of stuff.
That's and that's such an important thing, because we're so conditioned to making snap judgments. I mean, just immediately. I mean, it's
even if it's not founded. That's just what we do. Yeah,
it's instinct. We are totally, really we're taught now to just totally judge a book by its cover, and it happens. So if you're starting off, you're totally starting off on the wrong foot. If the website's like,
it can't look like a directory.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you've seen so many of these, especially industrial manufacturing. Their websites just look like a directory.
Yeah.
It's just a terrible version of Amazon.
Right. Yeah.
And it loads slow. It's hard to figure out what you're doing. That's why we wanted to go with a visual navigation, so that people don't even have to read as much, so whenever they go to the menu and it drops down, there's all the categories, but next to the categories is a picture, so they can just see. Because a lot of times, especially with our products, people know, I need a mixer that's going to fit this, but they don't know what it's called. And so they'll come to the website looking around like, do I need a drum mixer? Do I need a tote mixer? Do they need, I don't know what it is. I know I need it to fit in this thing, and they know what it looks like, and so they can see it and immediately be like, that's it, that's what I need, and go on down. So it's really improved everything, but it started with the design, and then getting into the numbers of like, what do we need to do with the design to improve these numbers? Like, how can we get people to spend less time on our site, but that be a more productive less time? Because last thing we want is someone spending 25 minutes on our website and then just bouncing.
Right.
I mean, what a waste of time, and they're going to feel like they wasted a ton of time.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to lower that and give people just a better experience overall.
That's awesome. That's really intriguing to me. One part in particular, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, is what did getting that feedback look like? Like, how did you? I mean, you just like email a bunch of people. Like, what did that look like?
So we got a list together of a spreadsheet, and we filtered that list by the people that have spent the most online, and then started just calling them or emailing them, however we could get in contact with them, just asking them questions of what do they like about the store, what do they not like, what is their process, through when they're trying to find something, like, tell me how you're doing this. So we got a lot of that feedback, and we went all the way down the line to people that had purchased but they never purchased again, asking them why and things like that. And then we also got a heat mapping software for our website, so we could see how people were navigating, which that's crazy.
It's creepy, but it's cool.
It's creepy, and it's like it can be. You have to take your emotions out of it because you can see people.
What are you doing? Go this way.
And you can watch someone's session and you just know, like, they hate this website and they're having a horrible time.
And it tears you up inside.
You're just like, you feel terrible. But that was super helpful because we could see, like, where people are naturally gazing and all that stuff, and whether it was where we wanted them to or not, and be able to adjust. And so that was really helpful. So those were the two main ones, is like,
awesome.
Actually contacting the people that were purchasing,
Right.
And then the heat mapping and website sessions.
So using like a Crazy Egg or Lucky Orange or something like that.
Yeah, it was a hot jar is what it was.
Okay. Yeah. So anyways, anyone who's like, any viewers who are listening or watching, if you're not familiar with that, I mean, there's some creepy technologies that can basically do that. It literally records website data and activity, and you can see like where hotspot areas that people are looking.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them will actually record the actual user session, so you can see the mouse.
See the mouse all over.
Creepy, but it does really help from a user experience standpoint.
Yeah,
Like,
and you're not getting any personal data from them, so it's not anything. But those were the two big data points that we looked at.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's next? I mean, I don't want you to give away any of the secret sauce here.
We do have a big project we're working on, and I can't go into full detail about it right now because we're kind of in the middle of it. But it's a big step into trying to make that process even easier.
Even easier.
Yeah. We recently reevaluated our kind of core purpose and culture as a company, and so we kind of landed on like a new core purpose that we want to use and really implement into everything, and that's that we really believe that every process we touch, we improve. Yeah. That's our core purpose statement as a company, and so we want that to kind of filter down internally and externally.
Right.
And so how are we making things, like actually manufacturing stuff? Like, how can we improve that? How can we improve marketing? How can we improve communication internally? And then on the customer side, like, how can we improve their experience? Like, how can we let them know along the way when their stuff is getting built? Like, how can we evaluate their process that they're actually buying this equipment for, and maybe recommend something better, even if that means it's cheaper. Really like improve their process for the better, not just for our own gain. That kind of thing. Because I mean, really believe it as a company. Like, the more that you give, the more you're going to get. We're not. If we sell someone something that's less expensive than what they originally wanted because it's what they really need,
you picked up a customer for life.
For life, and you don't feel like you've cheated someone out of something, And so we really want to just apply that to everything, and that's why this next project is going to be so important, because we do believe that people are smart enough to make their own decisions, and they need to be able to not just find what they want, make their own decisions, but to be able to customize stuff too. Right. And that currently there's cool. nothing like that in the industry, and so that's really what we're working toward, so that people can be their own salesman through the entire process. So that's what we got coming up, hopefully sometime next year.
That's awesome.
So we're working on that hard right now. But
very cool. All right, so one of my last questions, for those companies that are interested in, taking a little step in that direction. Obviously, we know, and this isn't necessarily going to work for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Totally depends on what you're manufacturing and what and your product and all that stuff. But what tips would you give for somebody who's thinking about it, or they're like, hey, we kind of want to get into this? What would you?
Yeah. Well, I would assume that they have websites now, even if it's not e-commerce.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I would start with that data. Start looking at that data. Install a heat map thing and see what people are doing.
Yeah.
You'll find out very quick whether or not they're finding the answers to their questions. And then once you know that, that data, start answering those questions.
Yeah.
And that's really where you kind of learn if like, well, maybe e-commerce isn't what we need to be doing, or or maybe it is. Like you can have this product with all the information that they could ever want. And really clean it up and make it easy to use. And so it's unlike last time when we talked about social media and you asked about the time investment. I don't think that this requires to start a huge full-time salary time investment. Gosh, websites can be so easy nowadays. And so, especially if you're using Shopify, there's plenty of great agencies out there that can do pretty cheap, good templates that are built off of best practices. So they might not be customized to the extent that ours is, but they're customized to best practices. So you're starting on a good foot. And so you can, start there, implement this e-commerce website, and then you don't have to lose what you're already doing, because you'll have a good website. It can be lead gen. You're not like firing salespeople. You're not really changing anything, and just pick a few products that you think that people are buying. Like maybe a middle of the road price range that's somewhat of a popular product that you sell that's not complicated. And start with that and really put some ad spend into it and try to really see what you can do in terms of converting your visitors to those things and see if it's something that's viable. And then, if it is, then you can start adding more and more products and building more and more content. You don't have to just put all, 2,000 products you have up from day one, because you'll spend, $1 million in content and images. And I mean, you just don't have to do that. But I think people feel like they have to do that. But you can start. You can start smaller and kind of test the waters of it, and then collect that data. And if you're in a place where your competitors aren't doing it, I mean, gosh, you got nothing to lose, everything to gain.
Absolutely.
So.
No, well, Daniel, I really appreciate the time and the answer. You've just unloaded a ton of value and just a lot of great insights. Thank you so much for reaching or for coming back on IndustrialSage, swinging by in the Atlanta area. So if anybody want to come check you guys out, you go to mxdprocess.com.
The website that we've been talking about is mixerdirect.com.
Mixerdirect.
Yeah, it's our brand of agitation equipment.
Right, perfect. So mixerdirect.com.
That's right.
You can check that out.
Yep.
And take a look at all the great things. I love the visualization you're talking about through navigation, all that stuff.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
My pleasure.
Well, this was really. I love this episode. I'm just a huge fan of e-commerce. I know we talk about it a lot on here. There's so many key takeaways that I definitely took. Think about, if you think this might be a really good fit for you, you might want to try it. Dip your toe in the water. Just try it. You don't have to do everything like Daniel said. Maybe just try like a couple little things. And I'm going to steal a line that Malika, if you watched a couple episodes ago from Landis & Gear, talked about: nail it and scale it. Right. So just like get it, test it out. If it works, then scale it and go from there. Don't be afraid to continue to really just try it. You have to be innovative, and that's what it's really going to take right now. I think one of the other great, awesome takeaways is, and we talked about this a lot, is looking at your website and that experience. Like, people make a snap judgment on you and with your product and your company. And if you go to your website, we talked about this on a previous episode we just recorded, that when people come look at your website, what's that experience? And this all plays into it. So anyways, take a look at mxdprocess.com and mxddirect.com. I got that wrong. And take a look at what they're doing, see how you guys might be able to use that in your own organization and go from there. So if you have any future questions that you'd love for us to answer on IndustrialSage, we'd love to do that. You can reach out to us at industrialsage.com/questions. If you're listening on iTunes, we'd love a review. On social media, hey, share the love. And as always, thanks for watching. I'm Danny Gonzalez, and this is IndustrialSage.